came after what the U.S. called a recent trend of increasingly dangerous behavior by Chinese military aircraft. The PLA quickly countered with its own video and said it was the U.S. aircraft, not the Chinese one, that was flying dangerously. The world was just a few meters away from a major crisis.
This is a very complicated issue, but I can make it simple. All these things happened very much close to China, or simply in China's, exclusive economic zone. So they are not happening, somewhere near Hawaii. It's not near Brisbane, for example. So this is the fact.
But it is debatable whether or not the South China Sea is in China's exclusive economic zone, because Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, they all have claims to the area as well.
I understand what you said, but, the United States is outsider of this issue. And this is an issue between China and some claimants of the South China Sea. We are committed to negotiate a solution through peaceful means. Think about the military strength of China. Think about the fact that we, being so strong, are still talking about resolving this issue peacefully. We have demonstrated what we are sincere to find a peaceful solution. But this has nothing to do with Americans' provocation, as we see it.
Many people have expressed fears that we are closer to war than we have ever been in decades. What are your thoughts on this?
I think they're right in thinking like that. I always believe the South China Sea, for example, is more dangerous than Taiwan Straits. Why? Because people thought, okay, there might be a war in Taiwan Strait, but the problem is, in Taiwan Strait, a war will not be triggered by an accident. There are so many satellites watching, there are so many radars watching the situation. Even a few words made by President Biden have to be interpreted by himself and by his aide. So that means everybody's concerned with the issue. That means this issue actually may not explode so easily. But think of South China Sea. We have already have some accidents before, like the collision aircraft, like the very close encounter between ships. And the problem is, how can we resolve this issue? China talks about comprehensive building measures. President Biden talks about the guardrails. Yeah, it's fine. Both sides have a joint wish not to have a conflict. But the question is how to avoid it. My question is also an answer. It's very simple. If you do not want the water to boil, why would you throw wood into the fire?
There are crisis control mechanisms in place. There are hotlines. There are agreed upon rules, and they don't work. And the reason they don't work is because the United States and China think of crisis control in very different ways. So from the American side, crisis control is something to be kept separate from the bilateral relationship. That is, whether bilateral relations are good or bad, there should always be robust crisis control. It's too important, even when relations are bad, not to make sure that isn't taken care of. From the Chinese point of view, however, crisis control is linked to bilateral relations. So from the Chinese point of view, if bilateral relations are bad, if China has a complaint about American policies, then crisis control should be one of the levers of pressure that the Chinese can use on the Americans. So we continue to have problems. When the United States uses the hotline and calls China, the Chinese don't pick up the phone.
If crisis control mechanisms don't work, then is conflict inevitable?
They want to be prepared for war, and they want to be seen to be strong. But I don't think they actually really want to go to war. Xi Jinping is far more pragmatic, etc. One case I always tell my students is, look what happened in 2019 when you had these protests in Hong Kong. there was a concern that they could easily sent in the troops, and they were sort of like amassing troops in Shenzhen. But what was the final response? The Chinese leadership didn't send in the tanks. They didn't send in the military. They used sort of governance means. They set up sort of a national security law. They legally to sort of clamp down on that. And to me, that sort of seems to show that it's like it's not the actual use of force. It's like they're sending a deterrence message, but also finding ways to meet your objectives of actually going to war. This is sort of the raison d'etre of what this Xi Jinping regime is.
从双方这个国内的那个被那个疫情的都搞得那个焦头烂额吧，是吧？一大堆事情啊，这产业链啊、经济啊，双方都有各种问题，都应付不过来了。所以从根本上来讲，对吧？中美之间他们是不想开战的。那么这个是个大背景，在这样一个大背景之下，哪怕就是说演习威慑的程度很多，有各种惊险的这种场面出现，就像12月中美飞机在南海，这种基本上都属于表达。
目前上有经济的考虑，不过如果这种摩擦继续，那过了4-5年，我们会不会看到战争爆发呢
？4-5年以后，就要看哪一方那个有这种打的愿望，是吧？要看愿望，这个是确实不好说。
我买，今天你们对我爱答不理，明天让你们高攀不起。
不是在打半导体战嘛，就是想告诉大家，中国人是能够创造奇迹的。
这是我们连第一次和美军正面交锋。
朝鲜战争的题材以前是不敢拍的，那么现在很清楚。
Put anything in digital form, you are at risk for cyber attack.
The lockdown that scarred a generation.
इसकी सबसे बड़ी बात तो ये है कि तालीम एक विंडो है एक पूरी कंप्लीट यूनिवर्स में.
Pulau Senang became an island of terror.
They hacked his body, and then he was burned alive by the very people he want to help.
I ran to the shin like a hell. I think that this is a new world disorder.
Our profession was music, and that profession was not welcome.
If you could make almost anything, what would you do with that?
We have artificial intelligence, which will tell us which is the best embryo to implant.
Over here, tech support means scam. Kalau Mila waktu main itu kayak ngerasa seneng bangga sama diri sendiri.
Catch some of these award-winning series all week exclusively on CMA. This is Singapore Tonight.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jill Newbronner. Tonight's top stories. From government funding to new ways of managing greenery, digital solutions at the heart of latest moves to increase productivity in the landscape industry. A call for more people to get vaccinated against pneumonia. That's especially for the elderly, with misconceptions and lack of awareness hurting take-up. Changing with the times, the president emphasizes the need to move away from archaic ideas about jobs.
Sorting of jobs between those requiring academic qualifications and technical skills is wasteful.
Also tonight, moments to remember captured on camera. A look at end-of-life photography, as well as the team behind the lens. Landscaping firms and nurseries can soon access